Hi guys. As ever, I am excited to share with you this latest version of your home. And what we're going to do is quickly review the reductions in mass because what I hope is that when you look at this, the design still feels quite like the original, that it's not too drastically changed. But once I turn on the previous design, it'll become much more apparent where we've made some reductions in the mass and scale of the home. So what looks the busiest, but really doesn't have too much of an impact on your overall design or enjoyment of the home, is that I've reduced what was a 2-foot overhang all the way around the house. We've reduced that down to a 1-foot overhang. Now, as we discussed, I still think that carrying the roof line all the way across does do a good job of acting as a belly band to hide what does have a two-story stack element to it. But by incorporating the recessed alcoves at this front bedroom and closet, as well as on the other side at the laundry room, I think that coupled with the belly band, coupled with the fact that we're keeping this existing shed, that mass shouldn't be discounted. It's not major, but I do want to highlight that we do have a second story setback from this existing mass, which does have to be tweaked and reduced in depth. But still, there is an apparent second story setback here. Now, some other changes you'll see, and we'll talk more in depth about the front office and the rear patio after I turn off the previous design. But you can see that we have reduced the amount of glazing here and reduced the overhang. But I still think the feature retains its original design intent. Here as well, we're stepping this volume in here to provide a little more articulation for what is already, I think, a nicely articulated wall, right? We've got this 1, 2, now 3 steps back from the ground floor here. It's a lot more than your neighbor has. But I don't mind this extra alcove here. We'll come back to this too. I want to discuss that alcove, that window placement. Now here in the back, you can see we've also made some drastic reductions to the overall scale and mass of these rear cantilevered elements. But overall, the design intent is, I think, nicely maintained. So let's turn off those confusing previous design lines and look just at the revised design. So I have, like we discussed, pushed the wall back here 8 inches, but we've gone with slightly wider windows here. The argument still stands in my mind that it's a shame that these windows aren't going to be protected by the overhang. But I do think that reducing the overhangs is the right move, per the design reviewer's comment on reducing the mass and scale of the home. Going with the 1-foot overhang is a lot less massive than the 2-foot overhang. Now, of course, there is trim, there is flashing aplenty at these windows, so I'm not hyper concerned that it's going to leak or anything like that. It's just, best practice would be to have the windows covered by the overhang a little bit more here. But we're at odds with the design reviewer's comments and your desire to have the wider windows here. But I do think it's okay. So just to be clear, I do think it's okay. So another way of reducing the mass is I've played around with the detailing for this roof, and instead of letting the roof rafters do all of the work of the overhang, we'll have the plywood sheathing and the tongue and groove finish for the ceiling do a little more work carrying the loads of the relatively small overhang here. That's a detail I'll work out later during the construction documents phase, but suffice to say, going this route doesn't cost you anymore, but it does reduce the scale of that roof overhang quite substantially, I think. Showing this trim piece here, now continuing down to the ground. The alcove here at this front bedroom, I still think feels really quite nice from inside the bedroom. That feels very intentional to me. Maybe instead of having a desk here right next to the closets, this might be a more appropriate space for a dresser. But there's plenty of wall space on this corner here for a desk. This is where I'd rather have my desk, looking out at the trees here. Now, I want to talk a little bit more in depth about the office, but we'll come back to that. Because first, let's talk about the laundry room window placement. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm showing the window biased so that it's centered on the floor area between the cabinets, the assumed cabinet depths here. And I think that looks really nice. And it allows you the opportunity to close this in with some full height cabinets and still have this appear centered. And what's nice is that as a motif, which I'm a huge fan of, these two recesses on the sides on the second story, this one here has the window biased towards the front, and we have some wall space where we're reserving wall space for storage. Cabinets in this case, closet in this case. So here at the front bedroom, the window is biased towards the front of the recess, and the back half is reserved for closet space in this case. So I like this motif, but ultimately I don't think it makes a huge difference on whether or not this shifts over to be centered from a design review standpoint or from the planning review standpoint. They care more about ultimately the height of the sill and the fact that there is a window here versus none. And let's see here. Not much really changed. I still love the design on the inside. So the pitch has changed a little bit, and the clear story window height is slightly reduced, but I still think we have a fantastic and ultimate connection to your backyard pool area and this heavily wooded mature oak forest you have back here that cuts off views to that railway, that huge gap between you and the next rear yard way out in the distance. Now, let's take a look at the office. So we did reduce the amount of glazing here, but I think it's still fine. Honestly, I think it's quite enough glazing for a room that you've indicated to me is going to be used also as a media room. So it's not overly glazed by any means anymore, but it's certainly not underglazed either. Now, one interesting new thing I've incorporated into the design is the fact that I've angled these walls here at the second story. So it may be hard to read, but these elements here are remnants of the attempt to add the stone columns at the second floor. We met and we said we didn't like that because you didn't like how it was choking off your view. And so I took that to heart, and I took them away. I immediately took them away, but I look at this and I say, gosh, it really did help in my mind to see this second story wall be a little bit narrower. And so I thought to myself, how can I achieve that, but also not cut off your views? And it occurred to me that I could simply, so what I essentially did is I took that stone column idea and I just changed the wall direction and floor plan so that the wall area looks a little bit narrower and a little bit less massive to appease the design reviewers. But we're not at all cutting off your view because that corner is still there. That's the original corner for the closet and for the front bedroom. And I really like what it does. It's subtle. And I'm angling the roof lines here as well to match. And again, I think it's really subtle. I don't know if it immediately reads to you in the 3D model. My hope is that it wouldn't immediately read, that it just looks so subtle and nuanced that you didn't catch it at first. But also, when it's built out, I think it's going to look really cool. I do have some examples I can show you of where the recesses or the large openings are flared. I would call this flared. But when standing here in the office, let me just grab both of these so I can hide them. From the inside of the office, they almost really don't have an impact on your views. If I unhide them now, that's not cutting off your view. But it does achieve a minimizing of the scale compared to what we were showing previously. Something more akin to something this large and with a lot more glass and a lot more wall space. Well, I'm going to share this 3D model with you guys so that you can explore it at your own leisure. But again, I really like this house. There is nothing about the changes that I've done here that I'm dissatisfied with. This still looks like a fantastic design. Maybe save this one piece. I wish I didn't have to add that one piece, but that's okay. I look forward to your feedback, and with your blessing, I will try to very quickly update the plan set to incorporate all these numerous nuanced design review changes so that we can resubmit by the end of the week. Thanks so much, guys.